This album did not want to be made. The first drum takes were recorded in the fall of 2007 with drummer Phill Kirby. Life got in the way for a while with touring. Then I started teaching and music directing more heavily in 2008 and 9. In 2010, we co-founded Down to Here Studios with the French brothers from LA, and I started scoring for film and television. In the meantime, we released a Greatest Hits live album in July of 2010 called Better Live. I lost my dad in 2011, and that naturally took a lot of wind out of my artistic sails for quite a while. I never realized until he was gone how much of a musically motivating factor he was for me. In 2012, we turned our attention to relocating and rebranding the teaching and production studio as Hickory Arts. Then I lost my grandmother. From 2012 to 2014, Carol Anne and I were contracted by Vimby and filmmaker Garrick Lane to operate sound and makeup for regional Walmart commercials. Then I lost my grandfather. At the end of 2014, I had 2 different strokes, and not the Gary Coleman kind. I don't recommend that. The album continued to get sidelined for several years for other projects and other albums, with a few singles along the way. In 2014 and 15, I turned my attention to developing and recording the soundtrack for a musical with Molly Bass called Junk. And I got to score a documentary called This Is Home. In 2016, Carol Anne and I celebrated our 20 years together, 16 married anniversary with a concert where we roasted the music director we blamed for our life together, Mr. John Coffey. To celebrate him, we helped digitally master and release the first cast album of an original musical ever produced, recorded, and sold by any community theater in North Carolina history. John Coffey and Tom McClary's Caught in the Act. In 2019, I lost my youngest brother, again, capsizing any creative momentum that I had. Then, and just as I was having the best financial year ever, COVID hit. But in lieu of the pandemic, that's when I decided to forge ahead with engineer Chris Garges in the fall of 2020 and try to finish this album. While we were in the studio, Carol Anne's grandmother passed away.
Losing my grandmother and finding out while we were in the studio, right before I had to record, was both a blessing and a curse. She is missed deeply. I think if it had been any other song that I was recording, I would have been fine. But recording a song about my sister and us growing up and thinking back about us being small, and a lot of the memories that I have are videos, and those videos were recorded by my grandmother and my grandfather, and so they were there, they were in a lot of them, and that just dredged all that up. And so it was challenging to get through that song in the studio. It was also a nice heartwarming time to just remember those memories of happy times with my grandparents when we were younger.
Shortly thereafter, I developed hyperacusis in my ears and start losing my hearing. I spent 2021 editing and mixing the album in my spare time and as my ears would permit. January of 22, I almost died of COVID and had my gallbladder removed at the same time. That was fun. Just as I was scheduling some mixing time with Chris, we're all blown away by his passing in February of 22. He was 48. That brings us here now, 15 years after we recorded the first stems. Look, this is just life, but putting it all in context makes me appreciate the journey this album has taken.
This has been an adventure and not always an easy one, but one of the things that has come out of this adventure that I have seen even more than I ever saw in our lives is the perseverance of Jeff. He has just pushed through everything that has stood in his way to be able to put this music out there into the world and create this beautiful piece of art for everyone. And I'm so enormously proud to not only be a part of it, but of what he has been able to accomplish.
A note about the title. It's been pointed out to me that it should be said, "Then there were three," but in the story, three is the noun as opposed to the result. So like, he is three, that sort of thing. So there. The album cover is a bit of a mystery. My grandfather was a consummate accordion and harmonica player. We're not exactly sure when, where, why this photo was taken. My grandpa's in the upper left. My great-grandfather's in the chair. And there's a mystery musician on the right. There's three of them, and it just looked like it needed to be out in the world. So why not my album cover? Because of COVID, schedules, availability, health, and everything else, I was able to include live stems mixed with studio tracks in order to sew it all together and wrap this up. So now that I George Lucas'd you with how we got here, let's get into it.